Leaderonomics show, and today we have with us Premesh Chandran from Malaysia Kini, the CEO of Malaysia Kini. And the Malaysia Kini is a very interesting entity. It's the only profitable online newspaper in the country, and it's also the first independent online entity in the country. Premesh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Roshan. Nice to be here.
So Prem, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you began this whole entrepreneurial journey and how you ended up in Malaysia Kini.
Well, I was actually a journalist with The Sun. I was part of a group which started off the Sun in the early days.
Yep.
And we tried our best to sort of position Sun as an alternative media. I was a writer there, and we did a lot of interesting stories. But obviously, there's a limit to how much you can do in terms of independent journalism in Malaysia. The government imposes a lot of restrictions on writing on issues. I went off and did my masters in Australia. When I came back, this whole reformasi thing happened, and then there was a big demand. People could see that they were not getting the full picture, So at that time, people approached us to do kind of like an underground newspaper. But with the internet coming in, I said, hey, why don't we do something online? So I partnered with my old colleague, Stephen Gunn, who was an editor at the Sun, and together we set up Malaysia Kini, and we really wanted to be, an independent news provider, telling people the facts, getting the facts out there, providing a diversity of opinion, and very importantly to be the first in news, because we believe that if you publish first, then everybody kind of, reads you first, and you are able to set the agenda.
Sure. But was this journey a difficult one? I mean, setting up Malaysia Kini?
Definitely. My background is in physics and journalism, so I knew nothing about really setting up a business, so to speak. So the whole journey in terms of actually raising funds, putting in your own funds, getting it going.
So it was a steep learning curve for you.
Extremely. You're hiring people. It was actually quite extraordinary. And in many ways, we were very lucky to actually get off the ground, and actually, I think the critical point was that it grew very fast. We hit 100,000 unique readers a day within 8 months, which is a huge growth. And that's the back day where people were still using dial-up modems. Very slow page loads and stuff like that. So I think that.
What is your secret in getting to that 100,000 so fast?
Well, we didn't do any marketing, but I think we were the only player at that time, and because of the whole situation in the country, which was at the peak of this, political turmoil, with Anwar's trial going on and things like that. So that helped kind of push, the whole brand, and we really positioned the brand as kind of being independent, and people liked just coming in and reading. It was free in 1999 when we launched, so we were able to grow very fast.
But how did you move from a free model to a subscriber-based model? Now, that's one of the hardest things to do, right?
It is. It's extremely difficult. Well, in 2000, the whole .com crash, so a lot of .coms didn't work. So in the beginning, in the early stages, people thought advertising would kick in, and you can grow through advertising. But after 2000, when it was clear that the whole drain from the online economy, the advertising wouldn't work, we had to rethink our model. So we asked ourselves, who's our greatest supporter? Who really likes us? Who will support us in this journey? And in the end, we thought it was our readers. Our readers would sort of have faith with us and actually support us through this journey. So we thought with 100,000 readers, at least 10% might subscribe. But when we launched our subscription system in 2002, only 1% subscribed. So by the end of the year, we only had 1,000 subscribers, which is in many ways very disheartening. At the same time, there are many issues like how do you make payment? People don't want to use credit cards online. We didn't have much online banking. You didn't have PayPal. So we launched it in a very, very difficult situation. But thankfully, that has grown over the years.
How did that happen? I mean, how did you transition, and how did you actually enable such a big subscriber base today?
Well, I think over time people have Malaysia Kini has built its credibility. People believe in us, and I think to a certain extent people subscribe to us both for the content, but in a way they also associate itself with a cause, with this idea of change, this idea of democracy. It's like how you support climate change, or how you help eradicate poverty, or do some social welfare work with orphanages. Your idea is that that if you subscribe to Malaysia Kini, in a way you're aiding independent news, which is going to go a long way to.
So this is the bigger purpose behind it.
Exactly. I think a lot of our subscribers are very much into that idea that independent news is critical for the country, and whether they read it or not, they still support us. So we've got half people who actually read us every day, but a lot of people who just subscribe because they want to support the idea.
Yeah, fantastic. No, you're a very interesting person, because you studied physics and ended up as a journalist. How did that happen?
Well, when I was studying I got into physics because I kind of like science. When you're young, you don't really know what you want to do, right? You just kind of do whatever comes along. And I love science and physics. But when I was a student, I got involved in a lot of issues, political issues, student issues. We were in Australia was a very fertile ground where we had students from all over Asia coming together, and students in Asia were really at the forefront of this struggle for democracy. Against Suharto in Indonesia, against Marcos in the Philippines, Tiananmen Square in China, in Thailand against the military regime, in Nepal against the monarchy. So all over Asia, students in the 70s and 80s were very much demanding democracy, demanding changes from the government, demanding accountability. And I think Australia, with all the students coming together, was a very fertile ground. In Malaysia, you had the Operation Lalang in '87.
That's right.
So in the late 80s, there were a lot of Malaysian students asking questions. Why are these people being arrested? Should they be arrested? Should we have more democracy, more electoral space? And then we had the 1990 general elections, which was a very close fight. With Semangat 46 and things like that. So it was a group of us, which were not only Malaysians, but students from all over Asia, but also other parts of the world. And now, the same group, people like Tian Chua, who's a member of parliament, Batu, Elizabeth Wong, who's now the state exco in Selangor.
So these are all your classmates?
All my colleagues in the student movement. Stephen Gunn also studied with us, and many others. We were all part of this group, which were part of this student movement in Australia.
So you think this was a big changing point in your life?
Definitely. I think it introduced me to a new set of ideas, which I was very attracted to. The idea that not only just your own career, your own life, but fighting for a larger cause. And my own earlier days, my own family. My father had a lot of problems with his business, and you're exposed to issues of inequality, injustice in the countries at a very early age. It's easy to then to say, let's try and work towards rectifying some of these injustices.
Okay. So what's your dream now? I mean, in terms of now that Malaysiakini is up and running, what's the next thing that's in the horizon?
Well, for Malaysiakini itself, we have got a very big brand and a very big following. But financially, it's still a very difficult sector. As media all over the world are facing a lot of challenges.
Right. Especially this year, right?
Yeah, especially last year was a horrendous year. This year has improved a little bit, but advertising is really moving very heavily, not only online but to non-media companies online. Google, Yahoo, Facebook is going to take up a big chunk. MSN. So really advertising, which used to support the media, is now moving elsewhere. So media industry is faced with unclear revenues. How do you actually generate these revenues? So I think that in online itself, it's a very interesting discussion, and I think Malaysiakini has a long way to go in terms of evolving, creating better business models and things like that. But of course, there's the evolution of Malaysiakini on the web, onto mobile phones, onto television, and everywhere else, which is very, very interesting. But I think the other area which I'm keen in is the whole idea of social entrepreneurship. How do you encourage, develop, support entrepreneurs who are actually providing some sort of social good or social benefit for society? And I see a lot of young people attracted to that idea, to use their talents, to use their skills, to actually give back to society in a very entrepreneurial, innovative manner.
Okay. So, I know you champion social enterprise quite a bit. What are some things that you're doing to championing social enterprise?
Well, recently, Malaysiakini launched the Inspire Awards, which is trying to bring forth social entrepreneurs and other people who are giving back to society, and get a peer group to recognize these individuals. So that's our first initiative in this space.
Where so these awards are to individuals or to companies?
To individuals and to organizations, but not companies, but more to community organizations and other types of social organizations. So we're not really doing the whole CSR part. I think there's been a lot of recognition for corporate social responsibility, but we're really trying to recognize the individual champion who's trying to use an entrepreneurial approach to make social change.
What are, in this country specifically, what are some things that companies can do or individuals can do in terms of driving this whole social agenda? Because there's not much good examples really out there in this country. What would you think? What's your take on that?
Well, I think that they are. Malaysia has done fairly well in establishing orphanages, social welfare organizations, charities, support for single mothers, support for diabetes, So I think we in some ways we have really been able to establish a very strong social support network. Even at the family level, a lot of Malaysian families support an aunt, an elderly person, a younger person. So Malaysians are very charitable. I see that we look at broader society and very conscious of what's going on in society, as opposed to many other countries.
But yet there's very few social enterprises out there, right, in this country.
Well, I think social enterprise itself is something new. I think previously Malaysians were very much into charity and support and welfare. I think social enterprise is something new, but the same idea is there: how to give back. Okay. And I think that like for example, we have the Global Entrepreneurship Week, which Dash organizes, and you see a lot of social enterprises developing, and a lot of people doing things in terms of energy, recycling. So a lot more people are calling themselves social entrepreneurs. Although these social enterprises are perhaps a little bit small at this stage, but the kind of paradigm is growing very, very quickly, and I think we'll see some big success stories in year to come. It takes a few years to develop, but really, this is something which has a lot of buy-in from the younger generation.
What do you think about leadership in our country, in general?
Leadership, well, I think
not just political, but in business across the board.
I think we have many good leaders, and if you look at the Malaysians abroad, you see Malaysians in top level in big companies all over the world, have done very, very well. Malaysians are very conscious of leadership, but I think that media has, because of the dominance of government media, they have projected leadership as something within government, or government leaders as leaders. Leadership in the business sector has also been, big companies, the YTLs, the Bajayas, that sort of
But
companies.
you see great leaders everywhere, right?
You see great leaders everywhere, and I think that we should give those leaders, young and old, more space and more recognition of what they do. Leadership can be changing a very small thing. You don't have to make $100 million, but leadership is about being able to look at a problem and solve it and innovate it and come up with a solution, and be the small problem, but that provides some amount of leadership.
Right, just like how Malaysia Kini is a leader in their field, in some way or form. Right?
In some way or form, I think we've been able to pioneer and show what can be done online. Of course, we have many other competitors out there coming in, and that's fine. We need to continue innovate and develop. But really, Malaysians are very good leaders. Okay. We understand many cultures. Cross-cultural communication. We are very receptive to new ideas. And I think that Malaysians make great leaders.
Fantastic. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Pieces of advice. If I'm a college grad just graduating, what advice would you give me?
I think first of all, go beyond the norm. Just don't look at something on the surface. Dig a little deeper, read a little bit deeper, go and meet people. Understand what companies are about, understand what the opportunities out there. I think that there are a lot of Malaysians who tend not to go the extra step. To actually understand what's really going on before making the leap. And I think if you do a little bit of homework and really go down to the ground and get a sense of what's it. Travel, if you need, travel, work somewhere and get a little bit of understanding. And then you might see the world differently. And once you see the world differently, you see the opportunities, and you build a passion for something. So I think the idea is actually find out a little bit more and find a passion, and then follow that passion.
Okay. What advice would you give me if I'm a head of a startup company or a young entrepreneur?
Well, if you've already got a passion and you've turned up into a startup, I think the big difficulty here in Malaysia is how do you go to market, so to speak? How do you succeed in the first 6 months and 12 months? And that's something which again needs a little bit of work, needs a little bit of thinking, may not be so obvious. Often the simplistic answer is obvious, but the real answer lies a little bit deeper. Build your network, get some advice, work really hard. I think one weakness I've seen among young people is that they're a little bit impatient, a little bit fickle. If something doesn't work, today they're doing this, next day they're doing something else, next day they're doing something else. So if you're going to change so fast, obviously you have not thought things through, and you're not committed to doing something for about a year. So I think that if you're a startup, make sure that you've thought it through, get enough help, and figure out how are you going to capture your first revenues, or what's going to take to turn yourself from a startup to a stable organization, and think about that part of the puzzle a little bit more.
Okay. Final question. What advice would you give our listeners? Any nuggets of wisdoms for any of them?
I don't know. Just follow your passion. believe in something, you know, and pursue it.
Okay, Prem, thank you so much for being here on the Leaderonomics Show. Premesh Chandran, CEO of Malaysia Kini, right here on the Leaderonomics Show.